I remember hearing that saying, keep it simple, stupid. And it was about this idea that if you try to make something more complicated than it needs to be, then you end up confusing yourself and you don't end up doing what you want to do. And I feel like with keto, it really is a situation of if we keep it simple, we will do better. But when we complicate it, oh my God. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet. The reason I make these videos is to help people to understand that your mental health and physical health come together to create your overall sense of well-being. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I do watch other YouTubers who talk about ketogenic lifestyle, who talk about health, mostly because I'm trying to learn. I will admit that I don't know everything. And also when I watch other YouTubers, it gives me stuff to research so that I can go and do better research. So obviously I watch a lot of doctors. I watch a lot of people who have gone through the process and talk about their story. I've talked about my story with my hip issue and trying to, figure out like why my hip was hurting me, learning that was inflammation, learning that inflammation is caused by carbs, and then my way of getting out of that negative story into a more healthful story by cutting the carbohydrates out of my life. So I watch YouTubers who talk about keto, and I also talk about keto. Why am I telling you this? Sometimes I watch people and I see that they're presenting information in a way that's confusing for no reason. And this happened to me recently. I was watching someone and the person said, if you overeat your carbs, so they're talking to a keto audience, and they said, if you overeat your carbs, you will fall into a gray zone. And once you're in that gray zone, you will not be burning fat for fuel, but you're not really doing carbs for fuel, so that you could possibly stall or gain weight. And I feel like that information is misleading because if I overeat my carbs, I'm going to gain weight. It's not a gray zone. It's metabolic reality. I'm either in ketosis, burning fat for fuel, or I'm not in ketosis, burning carbs for fuel. It's one or the other. Our body works like that. This is the reason that Dr. Westman tells everyone 20 grams of carbs or less total, not net, because that's the place that's going to guarantee for the majority of people you are in ketosis. Because once you step out of ketosis, your body goes back to burning carbs for fuel. What happens when you burn carbs for fuel? If I'm burning carbs for fuel, that means I'm also storing. Because if I'm not in ketosis, my body is focused on getting those carbs out because it means I've ingested too many carbs. So my body is focused on putting those carbs away and storing energy. That's what my body's focused on. I want everyone to be clear on what it takes to be in ketosis, because if I'm not clear on that, I will make mistakes. Now, here's the thing. What kind of confused me is that in this video, it went on to say that while I'm in this gray zone, my body will store 90 to 95% of the fat that I'm ingesting, but only 75% of the carbs that I'm ingesting. And somehow this was supposed to prove that I'm in a gray zone. However, to me, what actually would make a lot of sense there is that if I've been doing keto for any length of time, that I've actually was in ketosis, and then I accidentally overeat carbs, there's a high likelihood that of the carbs that I've overeaten, I'm not going to be as high as what I was when I was eating normally. So it's not that I've eaten 300 grams of carbs like I used to do in my previous life. Chances are that I might have eaten 30 grams, I might have eaten 40 grams, even if I've eaten 50 or 60 grams. So if I've overeaten my carbs, and so that would mean that when it's time to put energy away, because I tend to eat high fat, my body putting away 95% of the fat because it's present versus only being able to put 70 to 75% of the carbs away as fat. So he's talking about as fat. So rather than using it as energy, they're being put away as fat. Would make sense because I didn't eat 300 grams of carbs. If I've only gone over by a small portion, then when my body is trying to put it away, it still has space to put some in glycogen it's still going to use some as energy like it normally would do. And then of whatever is left, it's going to put it away, which might be 70%, 75%. Versus, of course, I'm eating a ketogenic lifestyle. The amount of fat that I had eaten that day probably was still normal. So of course, I now have a large amount of fat that my body is going to put away as fat. I also have protein, which wasn't mentioned actually, interestingly enough, that's also going to be put away, because when you overeat carbohydrates, any excess energy that you have gets put away as fat. So yes, some of the protein's even going to be put away as fat. Here's the problem, is that if I make the statement that this is happening because I'm in a gray zone, what I'm actually not doing is helping people to understand that every time you overeat carbohydrates, your body resumes storing carbohydrates as fats, because it is keeping your carbohydrates under 20 grams of carbs or less total, not net, that keeps you in ketosis. This is not a gray zone. It's the way that our bodies function. Some people it's less than 20. Some people have to be 15 total or less. Some people have to be 10 total or less. Again, there's a little bit of variation depending on your particular body. But what's more important to me for everyone to understand at this moment in time is that it's not a gray zone. This is how our body functions. Scientists have reported on this. Doctors have reported on this. If you need more information, go see Dr. Cywes, go see Dr. Fung, go see Dr. Westman. They're all talking about this information, that keeping your carbohydrates under 20 is what's key to a ketogenic lifestyle. For me, it's really important for everyone to understand that, first of all, that 20 grams of carbs or less is what pivots between fat burning, carb burning. But even more so, no matter what I overeat, I push my body to store. If I overeat fat, my body will store. If I overeat carbs, my body will store. If I overeat proteins, my body will store. Because the key word there is overeat. If you overeat one of the macronutrients, your body will store. It's irrelevant which one. Overeat is overeat. I want all my wellness warriors to take the time to understand what you're trying to accomplish. We're trying to build the best possible body, the healthiest possible body, using the best quality of food that we can. And to do that, we need to understand what each of the foods do to us. And we also have to stop calling carbohydrates food, which I said in the last video. Carbohydrates are not food, but that's a whole other thing. If you didn't see that video, please go watch it. I'll try to link it. But we need to stop calling carbohydrates food. They're not. So let's do our best to eat healthy. And rather than looking for loopholes, rather than looking for gray zones, understand that eating carbohydrates to an excess of 20 grams for the majority of people will take you out of ketosis. Once you're out of ketosis, your body is again storing carbs as fats, but your body's also storing any energy you eat as fats, because you have excess energy. As soon as you go over 20 grams of carbs, you actually have excess energy, and it will all get stored. Any excess energy gets stored. I really hope that I clarified that, because we need to understand what our body is doing in order to make better decisions about what we're going to eat. If you've made it this far into the video, it makes me think that you appreciate the videos. And if you'd like to contribute to the production of future videos, you can go to Patreon/Violet Rivera. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. I'd love to see you guys here again next week, because I love making these videos for you guys. I love researching information for myself because it helps me to better understand how my body works, but then I love sharing that information because I think when we have good information, we make better decisions. I want to thank you for watching Mind Blowing Health and Wellness with Violet. Can't wait to talk to you guys again next week.